better chance. We are still playing. We're in the final minute of injury time. The ball is bouncing around the edge of the area. Michael Obafemi charges in, and the referee gives the free kick, and there's a little bit of afters again. And then Matt Doherty just comes across and sends a Greek player flying, and the Irish players are losing their temper now. Doherty's getting properly involved. There's a right old scrap going on involving 4 or 5 players. Matt Doherty might end up being sent off here.
Yeah, good chance of it.
Which will end up being a very sour note to finish a very bad night for Ireland. The referee's trying to split them all up there. He went in with a heavy shoulder charge. The referee might let him away with it because we're over the 4 minutes of injury time. He's going to the back pocket. It's a straight red card for Matt Doherty, and that does sum it up. Absolutely needless from the most experienced player in that Ireland starting 11. His frustration boiling over. He had that chance, and I came into this at the start saying I didn't think that if Ireland lost tonight, Stephen Kenny would lose his job. I think he's going to be under enormous pressure, and it'll be interesting to see what the attitude at the Aviva Stadium is on Monday night from the Irish fans, because look, he's developed an awful lot of these players. He's given them 15, 20 caps. They haven't rewarded them in terms of performance. They haven't kicked on at club level an awful lot of them. But 3 years into this, to lose again, back-to-back defeats in yet another campaign to start off, and as you say, it's all but over before it's even began.
Yeah,
this is a disastrous night.
Yeah, the difficulty is that we were hoping that the performance against France signified an ability to be compact, but also create some chances to use the set pieces as our means to score. But we've conceded tonight, and it looked like we should have conceded many more.
It's all over. Ireland have been beaten. You're right. 2-1 was the absolute least. The absolute least that he deserved. There's a little bit going on the sideline. I'm not quite sure what's going on.
What's going on?
Matt Doherty kicked the ball towards the referee when the full-time whistle went.
What
the referee is telling him to calm down. Doherty's going back for afters again with the referee. He's been pushed away by Keith Andrews. There might be more to come there for Matt Doherty, I suspect. The Irish assistants, John O'Shea, surrounding the fourth official. Listen, red card, not red card. I don't think it really matters in the grand scheme of the game. Stephen Kenny's over remonstrating. 2-1. It could have easily been 4 or 5-1. Greece were by far and away the better team.
Yeah,
and it's
how many times do managers under pressure and their player receive a red card like that? It just doesn't smell of something that's great. So I think the red card is a bit of a hammer blow, and it doesn't reflect well. It shows a little bit of lack of discipline, and Matt Doherty should know better than that. And his manager deserves a bit more than that. It's
the manifestation of the pressure that they're under at the end of the game, and it's a symptom of what's going on as opposed to the cause. So, like, if in the aftermath they're complaining, there's no complaint about the referee in the situation. Look, this is on us. Yeah, they've got to own this now, and the table has just popped up on the TV coverage. Ireland and Gibraltar are at the bottom of the table. France have won their 3 games. France won 3-0 tonight. Greece are second in the table with 6 points, and they're going to feel pretty good about life because, the Netherlands, who knows if the Netherlands could phone in this entire campaign, and they might finish third, and suddenly Greece are qualifying for the Euros, and maybe they'll fill that stadium the next time.
Yeah, I think it's important also to say that the next sort of half an hour is crucial in terms of how honest Stephen is. I think he's got to be honest now. I think we've heard some stuff that in hindsight wasn't honest after games, or honest is the wrong word, but he's got to speak properly now after the game and accept that wasn't good enough for his own standing, and he's got to call it for what it is and say this isn't good enough, it's not acceptable, and we have to move on from it. And whatever chance he has of doing anything with this squad, I think the next half an hour is usually important. The media will play a huge part in where people's perception of him is after this. By the way, I say the media play his results have ultimately put him under that pressure that people in the media will be able to call it as it is.
That's the thing.
Accept that.
I think a certain cohort of us were really hopeful that we had turned a corner for Irish football and that we were going to be able to play good quality football, but tonight we didn't put our best players in their best position to succeed, and that's the really disappointing part. Nathan, I know you're going to have to go at some point. Just let us know whenever you have to go and we'll let you go.
I think one of the reasons why there was such a groundswell of support from Stephen Kenny was our supporters wanted to see a change. They wanted to see new blood. He has, without question, given them that. I think there's serious questions around the talent of those players, but they've been found wanting tactically, and they just cannot build any momentum at all. You say the French game, we sort of thought that was a turning point and we could follow on from that. But the amount of games I've commentated on where Ireland haven't won and you go, actually, this is a turning point, and they haven't followed on from it. Going all the way back to the playoff against Slovakia, where they were so unlucky not to qualify. They come out against Wales, barely create an opportunity. We sort of wrote that game off and the Finland defeat off by saying, oh, well, it was COVID. Then they go over and they play Serbia, and we sort of thought, oh, narrow defeat. We were leading in the closing stages. This is the start of the campaign. We can bounce back. Follow it up with a defeat against Luxembourg. Likewise against Portugal. So close to winning over in Faro against Portugal. Follow it up with a home draw against Azerbaijan. So there's been no momentum built at any stage throughout this campaign. And I think it's going to be very, very difficult now for Stephen Kenny to answer those questions over the next half an hour, because there are no answers. It was total and utter failure from Ireland tonight in every aspect of the game. There was no sign of a quality of football. Like, could that have been a Martin O'Neill performance? Quite possibly it could have been a Martin O'Neill performance, albeit I don't think if Martin O'Neill or Mick McCarthy was still in charge, and we would have seen a lot of those young players on the pitch, probably would have still been with the tried and tested. And he's going to come under massive pressure now. The FAI are going to have some hard decisions to make, because, as you say, it's almost impossible to see Ireland qualifying unless somehow Ireland, Greece and the Netherlands all end up taking points off each other. But at the moment, Ireland look way behind the Netherlands and the Greeks.
Yeah, even if... So I don't think it's an imminent decision that they have to make, but it's certainly going to be a clawback from here, because I suppose, Vinny, the problem is, and we were just talking about it while the game was still on, that like there's no commitment to a single way of playing, and every time they change the way of playing, it doesn't seem to work.
Yeah, and I'm certainly not going to jump on the defence of Stephen here, but remember, it wasn't that long ago, it was Troy Parrott, it was Obafemi, and we don't have the players in form and who are constantly in form, but they're all excuses. I'm not going to jump on an excuses bandwagon. They're just excuses now. What we've ended up with has fallen far short of what Stephen would have expected, I'd like to think. And look, I think it's easy jumping a bandwagon. I'm hurt for him after that result, I have to say, but whatever criticism comes, the staff and I have to accept it, because it's worthy now. It's worthy. Yes, there's a huge amount of heavy lifting done, but I don't mind. Losing 2-1 is acceptable, of course it is, away from home European football, but it's on the back of too many false dawns.
And it didn't feel like it was a 2-1 really. Like, it really felt like they overwhelmed us. That certainly at the start of the game, they were the ones taking the punches. They were the ones like creating space, creating chances, getting in behind us. And I think the other thing, I don't know, Nathan, if you're still there, is that nobody really played to the standards that we think they're capable of. That's the bit that's damning. Now, I do accept the point that none of these players are first choice in Premier League teams at the moment. Many of them are not first choice in Championship teams at the moment. So that's a mitigating factor, but at the same time, it didn't look like they were fully conversant with what they were supposed to be doing. I think Nathan might be gone.
Yeah, well, and I suppose if you don't mind, and maybe it's for as the week develops or over the next couple of weeks, we can touch on that, or different people better explain it to me. But the difference that people have to remember is, and this again, it's not an excuse, but remember that a lot of their players play European football, and I can't stress to you the difference what European football means to Championship football. Doesn't mean it's better than Championship football, but what it does mean is you're used to playing in these type of games, and we don't have enough players playing in your Strasbourgs, whether it's AZ Alkmaar, or compete against them. They weren't that much better than our Dundalk side. They beat us 3-2 in aggregate, but they went on to be at group stages, and they play and go deep into them competitions, and that's what we don't have. But hey, that's a longer discussion, and it feels like I'm making excuses. I'm not. I'm genuinely hurt for the man, because long relationship with him, but that wasn't good enough tonight, and they have to accept it.
Rory McIlroy's got 7 under par, just to add a little frisson of excitement to everybody's evening after that. We've got 2 minutes left with you, Nathan, before you've got to run. What are your final takeaways here, and ultimately, where do we stand?
Not good enough. I think simple as that. To be 3 years into Stephen Kenny's reign and to be putting together a performance as shambolic as the first 15 minutes were. They spent 2 weeks together in Turkey in a warm weather training camp. They've had 2 weeks to get a plan together for this game specifically, to come out all guns blazing, not worrying about fatigue, not worrying about match practice, worry about that in the last 20 minutes when you might need to dig in, but come out, impose yourself on a game, whether that's in terms of possession or as a counter-attacking, well set up unit. Come and do that. But it never happened, and they were very fortunate to get through that first 15 minutes, only for Gavin Bazunu at 1-0. They were absolutely outclassed. The only player I think who gets any credit is Evan Ferguson, who every time he got in the ball did the right thing, looked dangerous, but they couldn't get him on the ball in and around the opposition penalty area at all. And there have been too many false dawns. There have been too many false dawns in terms of players. Like Adamida scored 2 goals in the championship all season, first competitive start in 18 months. Parrott hasn't kicked on, Obafemi hasn't kicked on, and he's put a lot of faith in these young players, and they haven't repaid him, and maybe he hasn't repaid them with the way that he put them out there tonight away from home, coming out with a very risky. Gavin Cummiskey was on before and saying he's never seen an Irish side like that, such an attacking team away from home, and he's got it wrong. There's no question about it. This was a night in front of a half-empty stadium, but was still a bit of a cauldron, to keep it tight for as long as you could and trust that Ferguson could get you the goals, and it just wasn't there, and it's going to be a difficult few days for Stephen Kenny.
Just to make a quick point, I think tactically we were also beaten tonight, and that's the disappointing part for me. Tactically we were beaten as well as player for player.
Yeah, and
by Gus Poyet.
Yes,
and that's the problem, really, is that that's what you get judged on in these big games, and we talked about it.
Nathan will know how much it hurts me to say that, but you've got to call it what it is. We were beaten. Their manager won the tactical battle tonight,
and that set them up for the first half, and then the players couldn't recover from that. And I think ultimately, when it comes down to what the criticism will be or what the judgment call will be, is whether or not we're good enough at the moment. And clearly we're not. We're behind where they are. And to Nathan's point, this was the no excuses game.
Yeah,
they had everything they needed. They were in the nice hotel in Turkey, and it has not paid dividends.
No, and the performance just wasn't good enough. And as I said, the next half an hour is usually important for Stephen and how he speaks, and in terms of what people take out of that. And some of the press conferences have been up and down. So I hope he's honest, and that might give him a bit of a chance with the public. But it wasn't good enough. You have to accept that. You can't count the amount of shots we had or set pieces, any of that stuff tonight. Tonight's about putting your hand up and say we got it wrong. We weren't tactically good enough. He certainly won't throw any player under the bus. It's not a style, but say the players, the staff, we all got it wrong tonight, and move on from it, because it's a long way back.
All right, we do have to go. Unfortunately, the Republic of Ireland have been beaten in Greece tonight by 2-1. Some of the quick results for you: France beat Gibraltar by 3-0. England beat Malta 4-0. Ukraine came from 2-0 down to beat North Macedonia 3-2 in North Macedonia. Wales were beaten 4-2 at home by Armenia. So there is a pall generally over this part of the world. Right, Shin Splonk is up next. My thanks to everybody involved and put the show together. Vinny, thanks for being with us. Not an easy night for Ireland fans. We will
I'll have another game of golf tomorrow. Chance to redeem myself.
Yeah, and Stephen Kenny could do with another game tomorrow as well. He'll have one against Gibraltar on Monday night. We'll be back obviously tomorrow with John Duggan for more of An Inquest. Take care, Slán.